Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Hare Krishna Project podcast. This is episode number 148. Yes, 148. We're just two episodes away from our 150th episode. A huge thank you to everyone from all over the world who tunes in to watch this podcast on a weekly basis. I appreciate you being with us. Do not forget, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you haven't already, to hit the subscribe button so you can be kept updated about future podcasts and video productions from the Hare Krishna Project. And or if you're watching this on Facebook, that's the other way you can watch these podcasts. If you're watching this on Facebook, if you haven't already, please do like or follow the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page so you can be kept updated about this podcast and all the other things we do here at the Hare Krishna Project. Okay, as you know, over the almost 4 years of this podcast, it was actually February 2021, so almost 4 years ago. Over the last 4 years, I've had I felt very blessed actually. I've had the opportunity to interview so many people from all over the world, and I think what I'm gonna do soon is write the list of all the guests and their background and where they're from, and kind of really to thank them and honor them. I'm really delighted to welcome our guest this week. We're going back to the United States of America, that country that's been in the news again recently. It's always the top of the UK news. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome our guest this week. It's Anubhavananda Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It's great to have you with us. I'm really pleased that we finally arranged this podcast, because you and we first made contact with each other, or in this life, about a year and a half ago. And even though the podcast didn't happen a year and a half ago, several devotees since then have got in touch to recommend that you should be a guest. And I keep thinking, well, this guy must be pretty amazing if everybody wants him to be a guest on the podcast. So, Anubhavananda, I'm so delighted that you're with us this week to share your story.
I'm delighted to be here.
Great news, great news. The feeling is mutual. Okay, so the first question is the nice, easy question. It's the question that every guest gets just to warm them up. So please tell us a little bit about you and where you are from.
Well, I was born in 1952 in Seattle, Washington, to a Jewish mother and a Baptist father, which made me think a lot, made me want to inquire a lot just by that situation. It was kind of a chaotic situation, but by the time I was like 18 years old, I was very desperate actually to know what am I living for. I had kind of a complicated life because I was born kind of mentally challenged, but I look at that as Krishna's mercy. Really, it causes me to have to really turn to him a lot because of this situation. I kind of spaced out through school and got lost and forgot locker combinations and forgot where classes were. That's the way I was. But I would say my spiritual life began actually with my father. When I was just a little boy, he had his bowing down at our bed and praying like this. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And if I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul he'll take. And I actually felt a connection. I felt a very peaceful kind of loving connection through just saying that prayer. And then I go, God bless my mother, God bless my father, and God bless everyone. And I remember using that prayer a lot to pray for persons who I was fond of. And I would say that it was part of the beginning of my spiritual life. That was a very spiritual thing. Both my parents were not atheists, but they weren't real strict. see, my mother was not a real strict Jew, and my father wasn't a real strict Christian. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't even have married, because Jews would really just marry Jews, and strictly speaking, but, it's the age of Kali, so everything's kind of, kind of watered down the way everybody does things, But, Krishna, help me. I want to chant some prayers here before I speak more, because I really feel I need the help of Prabhupada and the Vaishnavas. So,
Yes, please do.
Om Gana Tvaranda Sahakana Gana Salakaya Chaksu Umelatam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopi Shah Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaisnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gordase Namaha Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagadataya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Guravani Pacharane Nivasesa Sunyavadi Pachachadi Satane. I have this realization that I'm really nothing without their mercy. It's just all about their mercy. I feel that I'm living in this world simply by the prayers of Prabhupada, myself. It's stated that the spiritual master is the friend of the distressed. And that's kind of me in a nutshell, just a very distressed, fallen soul. But by Prabhupada's mercy, however, I am here. And also the mercy of Jesus Christ, because I was really praying to Jesus Christ. I asked Jesus Christ into my heart when I was just very young. And after I did that, everything changed. My whole consciousness changed. My life just changed after that, simply by doing that. And there's much to say, but I had this really powerful experience in my room. I was praying to Jesus Christ, please come to me. And please, I also was praying to God and Jesus Christ. I recognized them as separate persons. I never thought of Jesus Christ as God, like a lot of persons do, but I never saw him like that. But I always felt a kind of a love and a faith for Jesus, despite that there was kind of opposition to it in my family. That didn't affect me. I just felt a connection that I couldn't deny, even when I was young, with Jesus Christ. I just felt like it was wrong to disbelieve in him. And I remember we used to sing songs in school, Christmas songs, and I really enjoyed those songs in school when we were singing songs, praising Jesus. I really relished that. And my father and my mother was also not giving my father a hard time. I attended a church when I was a young man. Just a child, I went to church, and they played this movie about Jesus, and I relished it as a boy. But I also went to synagogue, the Jewish temple, and I relished it there too. I felt a presence of God there also. I remember I was trying to look, actually, kind of like Jayananda. He's famous when he was a little boy. He was looking for God in the church. Of course, he was a pure devotee, according to Prabhupada, Jayananda. Maybe you've heard about him. But I remember I was wondering, why isn't there a picture of God in the temple? I was looking for God when I was a young man. I remember that. was kind of always searching for God, and kind of like Maharaj Pariksit, he was always, it means Maharaj Pariksit, the name it means one who's always trying to find God and everything. And I remember I was always trying to find someone. And anyhow, I was praying to Jesus really intensely. I was saying, please, I want you to come to me. Please send someone to me like you, or come yourself. I want to follow you. I want to know what I'm here for. I want to know who is God. What if I don't know what I'm here for? I don't even see any point in living. That's why I was praying. And all of a sudden, I felt this presence in my room. I felt the presence of Jesus, and I was feeling his emotions. I really felt like I felt his emotions of frustration, how the souls were misunderstanding him and attacking him. And I was kind of crying, feeling his emotions, I thought. And I said, then part of the things I did was I wanted a confirmation of my experience. So I turned the radio on, and there was this song going on that was a very touching song back in the 60s. It goes, has anybody here? See my old friend John. Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seems to die young, that the good die young. I just turn around and he's gone. And it made me think about Jesus, how he left this world when he was young. John F. Kennedy, he was such an inspiration to all the people. And he died young, and that was a great tragedy. And Robert F. Kennedy, his brother, was also. These persons were actually very charismatic, influential persons. You could tell they were special just by looking at them. You could tell they were very special persons. And then Martin Luther King also, he died young. And of course, that's what he was singing about in his song, was John and Abraham. And also Abraham Lincoln, he died young. And I was thinking how these persons, they were great inspirations to this world. And they could have done, obviously, I think everyone believed that they could do much more too, because they had that kind of compassionate mentality, for people. You could tell Robert F. Kennedy, he was really trying to help, people in difficult situations. And Abraham Lincoln was famous for, stopping the slavery. And John F. Kennedy, these were just extremely inspiring persons. And so was, of course, Jesus, the pure devotee of the Lord. But it seems like it's the nature of this world that the good die young, like Jayananda, who was practically the most inspirational devotee on this planet. Anybody who met him just loved him. I think I just want to talk a little bit about Jayananda, about his potency, that he met one boy who was a homeless boy. And this homeless boy said, Jayananda was the only one who cared about me. See, that was the nature of Jayananda. And Jayananda was so humble that he could not tolerate hearing glorification of himself. He'd leave the self place if he heard glorification of himself. And if anybody was being criticized, he closed his ears. I just think these are very spiritual qualities that we should have. I think we really should have that kind of humility, because that was the main thing that Lord Chaitanya was preaching, that we need to be humble so we can constantly chant the holy name of the Lord. Some or other Christians giving me these words to say, I'm a very fallen person, but I believe His mercy is working in me right now, so I can even speak. I have really difficulty in speaking, but there was other things that took place. When I was praying to Jesus at that time, I also wanted to draw a picture. It's called automatic writing. I was praying to Jesus to make my hand move and do automatic writing, and I drew this picture of a man tied to a tree with books in his hand. And I believe that it was trying to communicate that if I was going to try to surrender to God and do what I was supposed to do, it meant risking my life, like Jesus, and it meant that I would have adversaries, and that's what that proved to me, was like, it's actually more important to me. These memories mean more to me now than they did then. I'm getting realizations about these memories I had. There was powerful things going on there that I wasn't so conscious of at that time, that I'm feeling more conscious of right now. In fact, talking to you about it. That's how powerful the experience was, And anyhow, right after I prayed to Jesus and prayed that he sent me someone, the next moment, the next thing I knew, my friend called me on the phone and he told me there's these persons out downtown Seattle and they're dressed in strange clothes, and sheets, and they're singing and passing out cards, with invitations and saying there's this mantra that will give you self-realization. And this was my friend who actually became a devotee before me that I was talking to. His name was Ananta Atma. He died of cancer, unfortunately, about 7 years ago. But he was my friend since fourth grade. And so, but after he said it on the phone, I myself immediately became totally enlivened. It was just everything that I was wanting to hear all my life. I wanted to hear about something like that. So immediately I went downtown and I saw them, and I thought, wow, they look like they're from another planet. And I was completely enlivened seeing them. They were, doing Harinam downtown, and passing up bread prasadam and passing out these cards. And I was thinking, I have to get this card. I have to chant this mantra. That was my whole mood. I was one of these persons that didn't just come to the movement because of the prasadam. I was really eager to receive these blessings, to meet someone like that and to have. And so I went and I got the card and I immediately came back home. I was eager to chant this mantra. And I didn't even know how to even pronounce the words, but I was bouncing up and down my bed. I was going, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And I was chanting like Prabhupada said we should chant. He said this mantra should be chanted like an infant to its mother. But that was my mood anyhow. I was just feeling very helpless and wanted all kinds of help because by the mercy of Krishna, I'm in a situation where I've been just lost all my life, getting lost all the time and really wanting assistance in my life, to tell you the truth, from God and as devotee. I'm still like that. I'm always like that. That's me. But then all of a sudden my room lighted up. The room lighted up and I was chanting. I was getting reciprocation and my body lit up. And I was just stunned. I was just stunned there. And right then I knew, I had this realization in my heart. My future is going to be bright from here on in. I was just feeling like that. My future will be bright from here on in, because I was immediately getting reciprocation from chanting the mantra. So then I just continued chanting. I just kept on chanting. And my friend, who became a devotee before me, he joined in Seattle, Washington, and he came to my house and he brought me prasadam. My friend Ananta, he brought me prasadam. He brought me Back to Godhead magazines. He brought me the Krishna book, and he brought me the single Radha Krishna Temple album, the Govinda prayers and the Hare Krishna mantra on it. And I loved it all. I was relishing every bit of it, just going on ecstasy over all of it. I loved it. Was this still to this day? I think there's nothing in comparison really to the Radha Krishna Temple album. You must know about it. And it was George Harrison of the Beatles who actually inspired that. Prabhupada was also, I love George Harrison to this very day too. He helped me a whole bunch in my Christian consciousness. I can't even imagine how much he helped me, because for one thing, let me tell you that I think it's worth even saying that one of the things that kept me alive, just kept me going, just inspired to go on living, was the Beatles. And I believe Prabhupada actually said, I can't really confirm it, but many years ago I heard Prabhupada said they were fallen demigods. And to me, that's what they were. It's just like, Krishna and his pastimes, the demigods come with Krishna, to this world. And I believe that the Beatles had a demigod-like potency in their music, because I was just living for the next album. I was living for the next album. That's what I was living for. And my friend used to bring them to him. But then when George Harrison actually was singing about Krishna, and the whole story of Prabhupada actually gave George Harrison, the Vaishnava songbook. He actually, people don't know this, but he was inspired by the Vaishnava songbook. And Prabhupada actually called George Harrison his archangel. I think these are things that need to be put out there. That's what I'm saying. He called George Harrison. Imagine, he called George Harrison his archangel. And the whole story of how Krishna book got published, it was due to George Harrison. Maybe you probably have heard about this, but I like to tell the story that Shama Sundar, Prabhupada was telling Shama Sundar, I want you to go to George Harrison, and I want $19,000 for my Krishna book. And is this all right? What I'm saying?
Are you? Yeah, yes, it's great. It's wonderful. I'm loving listening to you.
Great. Okay. So immediately Shama Sundar he hesitated. He was just thinking, oh no, he just felt doubtful about the whole thing somehow or other. And then Prabhupada said, no, don't worry, just do it. He was relieving, and then Shama Sundar could read your mind. In fact, I have pastimes of Prabhupada reading my mind that I'd like to relate to you too. That are very amazing pastimes, I think. But so then he went to George Harrison's house, and he was kind of fumbling around, and he was kind of having a hard time actually asking George Jesus, because he was feeling hesitant about asking George to give $19,000, but he said, Prabhupada he needs George Harrison, he needs $19,000 to print his Krishna book. George Harrison also, he paused for a while, like he was thinking, and then all of a sudden it was a loud, thunderous sound, and all the lights went on and off. And then George Harrison said, "Oh well, I guess that means I should do it." That convinced him. But this is kind of a Vedic understanding also. It's like of omens, of different omens that mean something. It's that there's bird sounds and there's all kinds of Vedic omens, and loud noises are supposed to confirm actually right after you say something that it's true. So this is kind of a Vedic thing. So, but I think maybe George Harrison has already had a kind of a spiritual understanding inside of himself. He was a very spiritual person. And so he gave $19,000 to print a Krishna book. And of course, everybody knows, of course, that he was the one responsible for the Bhaktivedanta matter too, And who knows how much more service he did. He associated a lot with the devotees. There's even a video on YouTube of him doing a bhajan with the devotees, and who knows how many times he did that. He became very much friends with devotees, and Prabhupada loved him extremely. Sometimes devotees would come to Prabhupada and they want to tell him, "Oh, we saw George Harrison do that. We saw George Harrison do that." He wasn't a real, strict person, himself. And Prabhupada would become very angry, and he'd say, "It would take thousands of births for you to have as much devotion as him." That's how Prabhupada thought of George. Prabhupada just loved George so much, and it's obvious. There's other things that I can relate, but there's a real nice picture of Prabhupada, George Harrison, and his first wife, Patty. There's a famous picture of them, and Prabhupada just smiling really big, standing beside them like he's just very proud of George, And so anyhow, George Harrison came out with this album. It was three albums altogether called All Things Must Pass, and it was just filled with all kinds of songs that were rejected. They were actually rejected by the other Beatles when he was with them. He really kind of went through a lot of pain because of that, because he was being rejected a lot, to tell you the truth. I think it might have been due to offenses that George said. Maybe the band would have lasted longer if they were more open to George and his songs. That's what I'm thinking, but I think it makes sense. We have to be careful that we don't offend devotees, So anyhow, I would dance along with George also in a song. So I would just dance along with My Sweet Lord, and it was just all a very, very powerful moments I was having. It was all kind of, what's that word? I get synchronicity. what's the word? Synchronicity. All kinds of
Synchronization.
all kinds of synchronizing things were taking place. In
mm.
my life that led me to become a devotee was just definitely Krishna's arrangement, divine arrangement.
Yeah.
For me to become a devotee, and now, so I was chanting in my home, but it wasn't approved of so much. But I put pictures of I cut pictures on my Back to Guided magazine and put them on the wall. And I was singing before a picture of the Panchatattva. And I was feeling a lot of reciprocation even before I became a devotee. Doing that, I was really relishing all of it, a whole bunch. And but then because I was being disapproved of for my chanting in the house, I love my parents. I don't want to, make any critical remarks about them. I mean, it's just, the power of, ignorance, that we don't know what's going on. And so then I decided I have to move in the temple because I want to keep on chanting. I don't want to stop this chanting, And besides that, the family situation was very chaotic. Chaotic enough that I wanted to leave it. I'm not going to go in details about that because I just want to be respectful towards my parents. And so anyway, so I moved into Temple, but I hitched a ride actually. I hitched a ride from Seattle to Portland because I thought if I joined there was a temple in Seattle, but I thought if I joined in Seattle, my father might try to come and take me out, So I hitched a ride to Portland. And because I'm so spaced out, I wasn't even sure how to get to the temple. And I was chanting the Maha Mantra. And I felt that the Maha Mantra would guide me there because Krishna is not different from his names. So I was chanting the Maha Mantra to guide me to the temple. And it helped. I did meet some people that helped me out too, but I saw that all as a mercy of by chanting, that Krishna was being extra merciful to me and sent people to me to help me get there. And when I got to the temple, it was night and it was raining. And I knocked on the door and nobody answered. So I slept on the porch of the temple. And then when I woke up, I knocked on the door and this devotee named Leelananda, Jayananda Leelananda, answered the door. And I was not even shaven nicely. I looked like a hippie. And I'm not going to go into all my qualifications as a hippie here, but I was very hippie-like at the time. And he said, so what do you want? And I said, I want to surrender to Krishna. See, I had gotten that much of understanding. Somewhere or other, I had gotten that much of understanding by my chanting and reading Krishna book. I remember I was in total ecstasy reading Krishna book. It was just everything that I was looking for. It was telling everything about God, who he is, where he lives, his pastimes. And it was just completely ecstatic. I remember it was just an extremely enlivening experience for me. So then I came in the temple and I loved the atmosphere of the temple, the smell of the incense, and they're having a Srimad Bhagavatam class at the time. And I walked in and sat down, and there was devotees there. Donavir, a devotee named Donavir was the temple president at that time. And there was a devotee who probably everybody knows, his name was Ramaswamy was there. And I actually was relishing it all. It must be due to, some connection that I had from a past life, because immediately I just relished it all. I just was relishing sitting there and listening to the class. And then after some time we had prasadam. It was just very simple yogurt, and it was very simple, but I was relishing it all. And then Donavir took me aside and he told me, well, if you want to live here, he was telling me what you have to do, the regulated principles. If you want to live here, no problem. It was no problem for me. I felt I didn't feel like I was missing anything, even though I was. I admit a meat eater. Still, I guess I just ate so much prasadam that I just lost the taste, because prasadam was being brought to me, and so I just stayed in the temple and was blissfully doing all kinds of menial tasks, and I was relishing it all, just doing all kinds of sweeping the floors and cleaning the restroom. But there came a point, this is very interesting, there came a point where actually before I even went to the restroom, I asked, where's your restroom? And they said, you go outside. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, oh, this is too much, going outside. I thought they meant that I had to evacuate my body in the yard or something, which was at that time a little bit too much of an austerity for me. So I hitched a ride back home, but then things were going on so unpleasantly there. I said, "Oh, what the heck? I'll do it." And I hitched a ride back to the temple. Dino Bando likes telling this story. He likes sharing this pastime with devotees. It's so interesting. So I just went back, and then I found out that they had a restroom outside. It was a restroom that was built into the temple. And I didn't have to go in the yard. So so that was a big relief to me. So I stayed there for about 7 years there, in
Wow.
Portland. I became known as like a rock there. So many devotees left, but I just remained. And
Can I
then
ask, in which year did you move into the temple?
72.
Okay.
Okay. And I was going to talk about, I'm going to talk about some other experiences I had with Prabhupada before I
Yeah.
even joined the movement that are really, devotees love this because I've written this all down actually on Facebook. I wrote down the pastime, and devotees just completely loved hearing the my history. They just were very amazed and I loved it. So anyhow, when I came to Seattle, I saw this big giant picture of Prabhupada, and I looked at it, and Prabhupada's very beautiful for one thing. But he captured me. He was looking in my eyes through the picture, and he was saying, "Don't worry." He was telling me through his eyes, "Don't worry. Just you can move in here and you'll be very happy." And it's something that I wanted to because, like I told you, it was a very chaotic situation in the family. It wasn't a very pleasing situation, which I don't think it's really, I think that's enough to say, okay, about that situation. So, but I kept on coming to that temple and listening and taking feast. And in the Seattle temple, the temple president's name was Mukundla. That was his name. And he had me, I remember after the feast, he had me doing some service there too, sweeping the floor and stuff. And I was happy to do it. And I was relishing the Sunday feast and the lectures being given there. I was relishing it all. And, but eventually I moved into the Portland Temple. I told you a little bit about that. And I was going to tell you a little, anyhow, I told you that nectar about Prabhupada, that was one nectarine pastime I had with Prabhupada through his picture. But I remember even looking at the Back to Guided magazine and seeing the pictures of Prabhupada, and I was just overwhelmed by looking at Prabhupada. I was thinking, wow, he just sticks out. It's like God is making him stick out from other people, even in a crowd. He's easy to recognize. Christians wants him to be known. I could just sense that he would just had this charisma that just made him stand out so much. More extremely powerful charisma of the pure devotee of the Lord. And I remember just sticking my head. I was even looking real close at his picture and putting my head up real close to the picture, looking at him. That's how I felt about it. And anyhow, so when in the temple, there was one point where I remember they were playing the Namal from the Hare Krishna temple album. They were playing that. Like it's uncomparable. It's so beautiful the way they do that with Jamuna Devi, who Prabhupada actually cried when he heard the Govinda prayers and thought she has so much devotion. Prabhupada really loved Jamuna Devi a whole lot. The way she sang the Govinda prayers, he was crying when that was on. To show how potent Jamuna Devi was. So they were playing, and the devotees had made an aisle for Prabhupada. On both sides, there was devotees, and they were throwing flower petals on Prabhupada as he was walking through there, and I was way in the back, and he was glancing at some of the devotees, and I was thinking, if Prabhupada doesn't glance at me, I would just feel totally rejected. I would feel rejected. I would feel like Prabhupada didn't like me or something. I just felt Prabhupada has to glance at me. He has to glance at me, but that's how I felt. Prabhupada read my mind, And before he walked out the door, he turned around and with one of his, most famous beaming smiles, looked right at me. He looks right at me, And that just that took care of it. My distress was all gone immediately. The distress didn't be removed, but it just shows how Prabhupada can read your mind. I had other experiences of that too, of Prabhupada reading my mind. Like, for instance, when I got initiated, first they were just passing out the names of the people at the initiation ceremony, and I read Anubhavananda Das. I really didn't know how to pronounce it, but I thought I loved the name though. Wow, I love this name, Anubhavananda. Awesome. I love the name. I was thinking, wow, but what does it mean? I want to know what this means, And the next thing I knew, Prabhupada said, and we shall call this boy Anubhavananda. He shouted it, which means one who's always contemplating Krishna.
Wow.
And it just completely fulfilled my desire right there. He read my mind. He knew I wanted to know. And he made sure that I knew, And he made sure that I know also that he's nothing ordinary. But during this, when I was sitting down in the temple room, I remember right next to Prabhupada, I looked into his eyes. And I happened to look into his eyes when he was in an ecstatic trance. It was just, but his eyes were wide open, and I looked right into his eyes. And I felt like I was swimming, literally swimming in his eyes. I never saw such beautiful eyes in my whole life. There's nothing that can compare to it. And the fact is, I could not stop looking. I was in trance. Prabhupada was putting me in a transcendental trance, the way he was looking at me. And then all of a sudden, I knew, I just immediately I bowed down, and I really felt like I heard Krishna saying, "Bow down, you rascal! That's my most confidential servitor," And so I just bowed down, and I got back up again, and that was another really powerful experience I had with Prabhupada. And I think I'll relate another powerful experience I had once when I was in Los Angeles, I believe. And I think there was these bleachers that I was sitting far away from Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was down there giving a lecture, and he looked like he was in total bliss. And I was thinking, I think Prabhupada is remembering the Rajasuya sacrifice, with the king there, and I just felt like I don't know, that memory of the Rajasuya sacrifice was coming into my mind. And I looked down at Prabhupada, and he looked up at me like he was pleased. I did, even from a long distance away, he looked at me like I was pleased, and tears started coming down my eyes. Tears started coming down my eyes. It was just causing me, when it was blissful tears, And so that was it. I think he was pleased that I was thinking like that I was thinking of a pastime with Krishna when he was talking. I think that's what I believe. He was pleased that he's thinking about Krishna at his pastime, and how this is really a pastime we're in right now. In fact, it was our pastime. It was Prabhupada's Leela that I was getting to take part in. And then there was another time when I was in the temple, and he was chanting Jaya Radha Madhava, and he was rolling his head around when he was chanting, and it looked to me like, it was reminding me of like the moon going through the clouds. It was just a transcendental. It was just really beautiful, and I felt really offensive, but I was thinking, Prabhupada, are you really with me? I was thinking to myself, Prabhupada, are you really with me? Then all of a sudden he looked up at me, and I heard him in my mind, and he was saying, "Yes, I'm always with you."
Wow, that's wonderful.
That's what I heard,
I love it.
So, and then, okay, that's one experience. But I think another experience that is actually taking place in my life is when Prabhupada left his body. After Prabhupada left his body, everyone was crying. I was on the floor, rolling around and crying. And then I walked up to Prabhupada's Vyasa, and I was praying to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, actually, I'm feeling like crying right now, to tell the truth, because I'm still feeling like that. I was saying, Prabhupada, I don't know what I'm going to do without you. And wow, I'm feeling real close right now. I'm feeling an ecstatic connection right now. I do by just remembering this. And I was saying, Prabhupada, please, this was before he left his body, actually. This is before he left his body. I said, you can take my body. That's what I said. You can take my body, Prabhupada. That's what I was saying. You can take my body. Because I really, I'm completely at a loss of how I'm going to go on without you. And to tell you the truth, I think in a very powerful sense, he did. He did come into my heart, and he's been maintaining me all these years. After some time, when I was in ISKCON, I left because I felt that there was something missing. I was living in ISKCON after Prabhupada's disappearance. And at one point, I just knew something was. I didn't know what it was, but something was missing because now all these other gurus who actually, to my understanding, were never even authorized by Prabhupada even to be doing that. There was a letter. He said, "I want you to initiate on my behalf." He was saying, "I want you to initiate on my behalf. These will be my disciples." And anyhow, the instruction was not followed, and they were accepting their own disciples, and everything changed. The books started changing, and the way Prabhupada wanted deity worship started changing. Everything changed after that, and it wasn't centered on Prabhupada anymore. That I realize now. That's why I was feeling that something's missing here. I didn't realize it then, but I realize it now that it was just missing. People were just worshiping other persons who were actually not even pure devotees, who were posing as pure devotees. And this was going on. So I left, and I ended up. But I got married too, for 3 years to this Mataji, a very famous Mataji. Actually, she was very famous for working with the prison ministry and bringing bread to the prisoners and giving them books and stuff. But somehow or other, it just didn't work out with us. And anyhow, I think a lot of the reason is because our consciousness actually became not so Krishna conscious because we were worshiping persons that weren't Krishna conscious themselves. You take on the qualities, of the persons you worship. That's just the nature of the thing. So, Krishna help. Am I talking all right?
You're fantastic, and I love how you're just sharing your story. It's very easily coming out. I mean, I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think at the moment we're kind of talking about you left ISKCON. I assume that was maybe the 1980s, quite possibly.
Yeah, it was around 1988. I
Okay.
moved outside. And for several years, I was just living alone in apartments, renting apartments myself. And somewhere or other, I kept on chanting and continuing writing the poems, even though I went to devotees' houses. I went to this devotees. You might probably have heard of him. His name is Dhamma Ghosh. And I was going to his meetings and he was allowing me to read my poems. I was making recordings of my poems with background music, and some of the devotees were saying that was their favorite part of the whole meeting. Of the whole meeting was that. I got these kind of comments like that. But through the years in different temples, I've been in several temples. I was in Columbus, Ohio, and I became actually popular in all these temples. They all got to know me for my songs. I used to record songs with guitars, and they all got to know me. I actually kind of became famous due to that, and it's all Prabhupada really is working through me. I just feel like I'm a tool somewhere that Krishna and Prabhupada are using me. I know I'm not doing anything, and if I know as soon as Prabhupada actually said, as soon as you think you're something, you're finished. As soon as you think you're something, you're finished. We need to feel that we're very wretched. In fact, Prabhupada said you should feel yourself to be very wretched. That's no problem. And the greatest devotees, what are they thinking? Krishnadas Kaviraj. He's compiling the most practically elevated literature of the Vaishnava literature, even considered to be superior to Srimad Bhagavatam, the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But he considered himself, this was an old man doing this, and he considered himself lower than the worms and stool. That's how he described himself, you know. So this we were supposed to be. This is, I think, an essential roots of our devotion is our humility. As soon as we become a little proud, we're finished. You know, even there's pastimes of Krishna with his intimate devotees, where he wanted to chastise them if they became a little puffed up. Even in the intimate pastimes, you know, Krishna doesn't like us to become proud. He just. But I think there's some rasas also that Krishna enjoys, like the coward boys. They think they're helping Krishna lift Govardhan Hill. You know? They actually think, but it's transcendental though. It's all transit. It's a transcendental ecstatic emotion they're having. You know, this. Of course, there's nothing wrong in these pure devotees. There cannot be. You know, it's. Prabhupada describes that actually everything in this material world is a perverted reflection, you know, of what's going on in the spiritual world. Everything, and. But it becomes what's the greatest there becomes the lowest here. That's the way it works. So, and so,
can we talk a bit about your poems in a bit more detail, if that's okay?
Well, okay. But my poems, I've been writing them ever since even before I joined the movement. I was writing poems. There was one song I wrote. It was called "Say, My Friends, You Remember Krishna." And when I moved into the temple, Donovan would actually play the guitar and sing that song, you know. So immediately I was big appreciated right from the very beginning. But I can recite one poem right now to you that I'm kind of popular for, that even my friend, he has me reciting this to complete strangers and they get blown away. So I'm just going to recite one poem that Krishna blessed me to write several years ago. It goes like this. Step gently through your days. Step gently through your nights. Forget the past now sleeping, nor trust the future beyond sight. Clasp the time within your grasp to remember who is giving the light you have to find your way and the life that you are living. He lives within our hearts, and behold his constant hand at every moment, every step, to help you understand. His love still awaits you when all other loves depart. For your sincere and tear-filled eyes and pleading open hearts. Take me, I am yours, for whatever you desire. For you alone are all I need. The only one to take me high. Anyway.
Wow, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. And you've been writing poems for over 50 years?
I was writing poems even when I was a kid. You know, I was writing songs like Bob Dylan. I've been writing all my life. This is actually, to me, it's my main way of communication. It's through my poems. I'm not so good at talking like this. I communicate my best through the poems. I have another poem here that I wrote several years ago, but I'll read it if you like.
Yeah, yes, please do. Please read it, Prabhu,
Okay.
please.
Okay, I'm going to have to put my other glasses on. I'm half blind here, but
no worries. And you've written over 5,000 poems, I believe.
Apparently, yeah. I mean, I have so much; it's almost like a burden, really.
That's amazing. I mean,
I just,
5,000 poems. That's remarkable.
you know, Prabhupada actually said we should write down our realizations. Prabhupada said that, and that's what I've been doing all these years. I just write down my realizations. I'm going to read this poem. I just got to get my glasses out of my.
Yes, no worries, no hurry. It's been wonderful to hear your story, actually, and
thank you very much.
Yeah, I.
This is a great service you're doing, because the fact is I have a desire that a lot of people hear this, because to me it's not me. It's Prabhupada and Krishna just bestowing his blessings through me, through this poetry. That's been my experience, because I have a page on Facebook that has many years of my poems, and persons have said the most amazing. This one woman from India said, "There's nobody that brings me closer to Prabhupada than you." So
Wow.
imagine something like that. But I'm gonna also other statements similar to that and as good as that. That so it's a big inspiration for me to continue. But it's very important. I know I'm not the doer though. This is just Prabhupada's blessings. I mean, it's just special blessings of Prabhupada that I have to very humbly just give all credit to him. I'm just a dog, and that's what I say in all my poems. I'm just a dog. So anyhow, here's a poem that I wrote several years ago, but by Krishna's will, this showed up for me, so I'm going to read it.
Yes, please. Yeah.
I must not, I must not keep this to myself, for by his mercy I do right, and only by his expert help have I come into the light. The light of Krishna consciousness is the most essential light indeed. And it was brought by Srila Prabhupada to make the whole world freed. He wrote everything in his books, God's own words, to awaken all the souls lost in this world, whose life's goal they have mistaken. For in the denseness of this night, none can truly hear nor see through all the hypocrisy and fight, the most degraded age of Kali. Now there is but one true hope to bring happiness and peace. It was Prabhupada who brought the rope. His books alone can cure our disease. For the most priceless books he wrote carried Krishna's most intimate presence, the timeless wisdom. Krishna invoked his own self through souls he did send us. He came from the most spiritual east, sent by his guru. He came to enlighten by showing how to chant, dance, and feast, and live the holy life, most joyful and inviting. He came speaking the truth, uncompromised, the truth found in the source of all scriptures. And because he was most open and honest, and his innocence flowed like the picture of pictures. His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada, his presence spoke for itself, for he glowed like the sun, pure Son of God, and he melted those hearts who sought his help. Life's goal, pure devotion to God, is revealed when God sends his inspiration through his servants like Srila Prabhupada, the so-called civilization. With a few more verses. For it is only God's pure servants who are surrendered to him all the time that can reveal the Lord to us for certain and teach us how to make our lives sublime. And it's God's servant. God's servant is so powerful that his presence never dies. He remains in his books and his pictures, still opening millions of eyes to the glory of God so completely that one sees him face to face, hearing blissfully and tasting most sweetly his most purifying presence in his names.
Thank you, Anu. That sounded wonderful. Beautiful poem.
Yeah, Krista just brought it to me right there. I mean, I haven't read that in years. What I just read just now, and it came out pretty nicely.
And I can kind of also kind of hear the emotion in your voice and see the emotion on your face when you read these poems.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling the emotion more because so many people are hearing along with me. It's that's what I think. So many people are hearing this by your awesome service. I'm just picking up on the world, I think, maybe.
So so 5,000 poems, I think is a lot. Do you write a poem a day? Do you have like or are you inspired? Or how does it
Actually,
work?
oftentimes I have no idea at all when I'm going to stay. Then all of a sudden, Mahatma's witnessed it. I walk into here and I say, wow, a powerful Prabhu is coming to me, And that's how, and that's how it comes. The words that start coming to me, and I have to write them down. And I really regret the times I don't. But it's not every day that I write them. I'm actually a very fallen soul, but this is just a confirmation of the mercy of Prabhupada. I wanted to relate a little story that I heard recently, that there was one devotee that fell away from Prabhupada for many years. And then one day he showed up, and Prabhupada hugged him and caressed him and said, it's so good to see you. This is Prabhupada. He wasn't the kind of person that's just wanted to find fault for all the bad things he did. Yeah, his heart was beyond us, really. Prabhupada's heart was beyond us. That's better. Prabhupada actually said, when one once approaches me, I will never forget him. Prabhupada said that. I will never forget him. This is Prabhupada. We really need to know. People just really need to know Prabhupada. And that's the whole point of my poems, is just to point people to Prabhupada. Because he said, one interviewer said, so what are you going to do when you die? And he asked something like that. I said, Prabhupada said, I will never die. I will live through my books. He actually said, I will live through my books for the next 10,000 years, and my disciples would utilize them. And also there's another really amazing video where one disciple was asking Prabhupada, why are we distributing these books to all these people? They're not initiated. And Prabhupada said, as soon as they read my book, they're initiated. See, these are things that people need to hear. They really need to know that the pure devotee is here for them. They don't have to look anywhere else. That's a message I want to bring out there. They don't have to look anywhere else. Prabhupada wants to be here for us. He's, just like Jesus also wants to be here for us. I can't, personally, I put Jesus in my poems too, because to me, Jesus revealed Prabhupada to me. That I really needed Jesus to reveal him to me, who he is. Sometimes people don't recognize him. I think a lot of people can recognize, but it seems many are missing him. That even though his pictures are there in the temple, and his murtis are there in the temples, somehow people are not getting it. But maybe it's because they weren't Christians or something. I think. That's of course just sort of what I'm feeling. But
and I think it'd be great if we could kind of discuss that a bit more in terms of what you're talking about in terms of Prabhupada being present now. You describe yourself as a Prabhupada Nuga ritvik. What does this mean? What does the term mean? And because some of our viewers and listeners might not be aware of this or understand what it is. What is a Prabhupada Nuga ritvik? And what is the kind of ritvik approach to Krishna consciousness?
Okay, well, Prabhupada described the ritvik as simply a priest who it means a priest who initiates on behalf of the guru. Even when Prabhupada was on this planet, when he became sick, he had ritvik priests initiating on his behalf. Even when he was sick, But he said he wanted this to continue though after he left his body. These 12, he wanted them to be ritvik priests for him after he left his body, initiating on his behalf. That's what he wanted. But some or others, so many people, that they're just kind of deviated from really wanting to understand everything Prabhupada said, It seems to me about this. They're deviated. They're deviated from understanding the importance of the very founder of the Krishna consciousness movement. But to me, also ritvik means just simply people who accept what Prabhupada preached, who accept what Prabhupada wanted. It simply means What ritvik really means is that someone who just accepts Prabhupada's words. He accepts everything Prabhupada said to the end. That's what it means, But it could be a very strict definition of someone who's qualified, to initiate on his behalf. But also, I'm saying kind of like another definition that I feel could just be someone who at least agrees with it. Probably, Christians even says in the Bhagavad Gita that someone is dear to him who simply agrees with him. And that's the beginning of spiritual life. We agree. And then gradually, we through association of devotees, they should be devotees also. They should be devotees who have faith in the pure devotee of the Lord. Not faith in persons that are not pure devotees. And that's also, you could say, part of the ritvik understanding that we should, it's just really what it is Krishna conscious understanding. We need to have faith in a pure devotee. We need to be under a pure devotee's instructions. Prabhupada made very heavy statements about, giving your life to someone who's a cheater. But I'm thinking about Bhaktivedanta Thakur. These pure devotees, they risk their lives to defeat cheaters. Bhaktivedanta Thakur was famous. There was this one very powerful yogi, very powerful mystic yogi. He had long hair, and he was very powerful mystic yogi. But Bhaktivedanta Thakur actually risked his life, and his whole family's life to defeat this demon. In fact, this demon, this yogi was so powerful, his family became ill, and he became ill. But the mentality of the pure devotee is that they will risk their life, to defeat these cheaters. This was very much Prabhupada's whole mood. He wanted us to expose, cheaters. And he said right in his books, there's this sinister movement that is into this movement. Somewhere or other, that this was so many years ago, but somewhere or other, it seems most of us didn't take it seriously. And we didn't even know. Like I was in the movement for so many years, worshiping these persons, myself, bowing down to them, writing glorifications of them and the Vyas pujas and stuff. I was completely fooled to myself, but fortunately, Prabhupada had some disciples who were, very scrutinizing disciples, who were really studying his words and really wanted to, and could understand what happened. If we're really sincere, we'll know what happens. If we're really sincere for the truth, we'll get a bona fide spiritual master if we're sincere for the truth. I'm putting this a lot in my poems. If we're really sincere seekers, we won't get cheated. But Prabhupada said, if you want to be cheated, you'll get a cheater. Prabhupada said that himself, If you want to be cheated, you'll get a cheater. Some people want to be cheated. And what does cheated mean? It means that they're not really interested in the eternal truth. They're more interested in something temporary, sense gratification. And that's what these persons do, in that place. They offer all kinds of sense gratification if you serve me. It's no longer ISKCON. It's no longer ISKCON if they're not following Prabhupada's instructions. The essence of ISKCON is following Prabhupada's instructions. Therefore, I tell you, ISKCON still exists with the devotees who are strictly following Prabhupada's instructions. It exists because that's the essence of ISKCON, is devotees cooperating together for Prabhupada to follow his instructions. And Prabhupada said, in fact, if you love me, you will cooperate together for me. And see, fortunately, that was the experience I really didn't describe it, but that was the experience I had when I moved into the Portland Temple. At that time, Donavir, who Prabhupada actually said was Mr. Enthusiasm, and he was very expert at training up brahmacharis. He was known for his ability to train up brahmacharis. But when I joined, it was just all centered on Prabhupada. It was this, I could experience very, 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 what's the word? I could experience very clearly how I was making investment in Christian consciousness. Very quickly, I was becoming effulgent. I was actually, my friend came to the temple, he said, told me recently, he said, you were so effulgent. And this is the symptom of spiritual life. We become effulgent. I remember even when we went out to do Sankirtan, all the devotees were focused. Even in the sunset, you could see that the devotees were bright, you know. And anyhow, Donovan was very enthusiastic devotee. He even had us going out when we had sores all over our body. We just put cream all over our body. And we're still going out in Sankirtan. And I went out and I was distributing all kinds of books, you know, before I even was initiated. And it was so ecstatic, you know. And anyhow, that was when I had my most powerful experience of Krishna consciousness. I had the practical experience when we're centering our lives in Prabhupada, you know, and cooperating for him, which Prabhupada said we should do. We're making very quick advancement. And that was lost. That experience, it was lost. I just recognized it as the years went on. It was lost. That experience, it was in those days, actually, devotees loved each other. They were always eager to meet each other and greet each other. And recently, I've just, I got to tell you, I haven't experienced. I've not experienced that. It's not the same.
Can I ask, do you worry about the future of the Hare Krishna movement in terms of what?
Of course, I actually feel very great distress about it. But, you know, Prabhupada did say that Lord Chaitanya will take care of his movement. But how long will that take, though? You know, he said for 10,000 years, you know. So how long will it take until persons are just really, they just really need to just cooperate for Prabhupada? I feel the whole thing could take place again, whether you're older or you're younger. I'm totally convinced if we were just cooperating for Prabhupada, we'd immediately, Prabhupada would be so pleased with us that we know this is what we must do, and the whole society can just be totally revived just by that. I'm convinced of that myself. I believe that's what I firmly, and that's what I put in my poems. You know, I'm trying to. It's all about us coming together. You know, I'm trying to bring people together. You know, through my poems.
Is all of your poems, are they all in one place? I mean, are they with you, or some of them are on Facebook, or can anyone find them on the internet?
I have several papers, printed copies in my room. I have some that we're planning on trying to make into a book, and I've done many poems online through the years. Some of them, because I'm challenged, I accidentally deleted so many, unfortunately. But I used to have a web TV. But that many years ago they had these web TVs, and I put so many poems on that web TV, and anyhow, there's years worth of poems on Facebook of my poems there on Facebook, plus comments of devotees, and I also tend to put, you know, purports of Prabhupada there, you know, and I've also recently been using AI to generate songs that I've done, you know, which devotees have been really appreciating too. This AI is, to me, you know, nothing separate from the Krishna. Nothing, you know, the fact is nothing is separate from the Krishna. Nothing. Krishna's inside of everything and Krishna's outside of everything. I don't see anything working. Nothing's working without Krishna. Nothing. And anyhow, this AI is so amazing. I put a few lyrics there, and it adds a whole bunch of other lyrics, and amazingly, it sounds just like devotee lyrics.
Wow. So these are poems you're talking about.
Yeah, poems that I put to music.
You're,
That's what I do. I put my poems to music. They
wow.
can be put to music. I've also written some that are just like songs with verses, and I've made some. They're not very nice recordings many years ago. They're on YouTube. Some of my songs that I've done with the guitar. You must know Dasaram Suti. He was on. You interviewed him before.
Yes, I interviewed him a year ago. Yes.
Yeah, way back then, he played the guitar with me, singing with my songs. Way back then, and also other persons have played guitar with me, and I wish I knew somebody right now who could do it with me. I don't have
Yeah.
the voice. I don't have the voice I used to have, but yeah.
Okay. And so you're now based in Florida. I think you said North.
Yes.
Florida. Do you I know you live with other devotees, but do you associate with other devotees outside of your home as well?
I live with this one devotee. We visit devotees sometimes. We visit, we visit a devotee, for instance, Dear Govinda. We went to his place. You've interviewed him also, Dear Govinda. I saw it myself. Yeah, and we went
Dira
through his.
Govinda, I'm sure I know. Is it the Dira Govinda? Is it the one that I interviewed just a few weeks ago?
Yes, that's him. We went
It's
to his
small
place.
world, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
we
seem
went
to
to
be
his place.
best friends with a lot of my previous guests. I
Yeah, and
know Dira Govinda quite well. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, these elder Prabhupada, they all appreciate my poems a lot. You know, a lot of the reasons I put my poems out there is just to try to get their take on it, you know, because I'm not a real big book reader, but these other devotees, some of these other devotees, like Jasoda Nandana and Dear Govinda, and this other devotee, Govinda Das, they're senior devotees, and they're always putting Prabhupada's purports out there. It's obvious they know Prabhupada's books real well, you know. And still, they're very much appreciating these poems I'm putting out there. So
Mm.
some
Mm.
or other, I just really feel Prabhupada is 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 for me. He's personally, you know, enlightening me within with what I'm saying. But I also, you know, a lot of what I'm putting is in Prabhupada's books. That's what I try to do. You know, make
Mm.
sure that I'm just repeating Prabhupada. That's what I'm.
Mm.
I also, you know, I read Prabhupada's books too, but I'm just not a real big reader. You know, but many things that he said in his books I still stay with me, and statements that he made. I was in a temple when Prabhupada said once when I was in temple, Prabhupada said this. He said, we are all more or less demons. Prabhupada said that. We are all more or less demons. And then another time I was in a temple and he said, the Guru is your eternal father. You know, which is, I love that. You know, he's our eternal, the Guru should be considered our eternal father. So how can we think that he ever died? Was our eternal, you know what I mean? He's our eternal father. And he also said that I heard this interview where Prabhupada said that he had great respect for Jesus. He said Jesus is the greatest son of God. And he also said, I am a servant of Jesus. He said that. So Prabhupada
Mm.
made statements like this. Then another time he was in a classroom and someone asked, are you the Messiah for the Jews? Yes, are you the Messiah for the Jews? And Prabhupada said, why not? So, so this is Prabhupada. He's nothing of this world, you know. We really have to be pure devotees to really properly. And
Mm.
Prabhupada said, only the pure really know the pure, you know. So we have so much difficulties because just lack of purity, I think.
Anubhavananda, what for you, what is the most important thing that Prabhupada has taught you? If you could choose just maybe one thing, what is the most important thing that he's taught you over the years?
Well, the one statement that I love of Prabhupada the most, that I really have to embrace myself because of my situation. He said, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. You know, just that statement right there is Prabhupada made so many awesome statements, but they're all awesome. They're all unlimitedly awesome, unlimitedly potent. You know, but somewhere or other that I like putting in my poems. I repeat a lot of things in my poems, you know, but Prabhupada also repeated a lot, you know, when he had to stick on basically the neophyte platform in most of his preaching because most of us just remain so neophyte. He called us monkeys. He said, "You all remind me of of Lord Ramachandra's monkeys who are assisting me." But he also at times called us pure devotees and self-realized souls, and his father and his fathers and his mothers. He made so many statements. Like I said, we have to be really pure to enter totally into the mysteries of the understanding of this pure devotee. It's stated that even great sages, this is a Vedic statement I'm making, even great sages cannot understand the activities of pure devotees, like Prabhupada, even great sages. So what to speak of us, you know, what to speak of us.
it's quite incredible and quite amazing. And I think your story is very inspiring.
Thank you.
You sound like you've been a very dedicated follower of Prabhupada for most of your life in this life. And I have no doubt that you were following some spiritual path in a previous life as well. To be this dedicated for this long is quite remarkable. And I also feel very inspired by your kind of early years as well. You talked about your father and how your father and he was a Baptist Christian, and that you yourself were reciting Christian prayers. I found that quite inspiring, and how
Yes,
actually you prayed to Jesus to ask for a revelation or some level of God consciousness, and you discovered Bhakti Yoga, which is
yes.
amazing.
I didn't mention my mother. My mother was definitely had very deep faith. You could just tell that she had deep faith by just knowing meeting her. She had very deep faith, and she used to love. I used to read the Old Testament to her, and she really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So there was very good qualities there.
What did your family think, your parents think about you joining the Hare Krishna movement all those years ago?
Uh, I didn't seem that they were too pleased that I became a devotee. To tell you the truth, I have a brother, John, who is about 45 years old or something, and he appreciates my poems, even though he's not a devotee. He's appreciated my poems,
You have a brother that's 45 years old?
something like that. And I had a sister, and I recited that "Step Gently" poem to her, and and she said she wanted to put that in her wall. Unfortunately, she died of cancer, but she wanted to put that poem on her wall. So they were appreciating my, and I got her. I was talking to her on the phone, and I was telling her about that. It's how auspicious it is to just say Hare Krishna when you're in a situation like she was in. She had cancer, and I got her to say Hare Krishna, which made me feel very happy. that she chanted Hare Krishna, and it was not long before she left this world.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I'm conscious that we have been chatting. We've been recording the podcast for well over an hour, maybe about an hour and 20 minutes. Is there anything else that you want to share with us that it's really important to you or for you?
Well, to me, I'm writing my poems also for persons that I think may be in similar situations than me. I want them to know that Prabhupada appreciates our service in whatever condition we're in. If we're really trying to serve him sincerely, Prabhupada takes that very seriously. But actually, there was one statement that Prabhupada said about poetry. He said that even great sages like to read poems of anyone who's glorifying Krishna. He said that. Anyone who's glorifying Krishna, great sages like to hear that. So, and Bhaktisiddhanta, he was famous for saying that the more the holy name of Krishna is mentioned in the writing, the better it is. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said that. So I try to put Krishna a lot, the name of Krishna a lot in my poems, and but I really am convinced myself, to tell you the truth. I believe it's my duty to believe that Prabhupada is with me, right now, even despite the fact I'm not really strictly following. For many years, I've been alone. I'm not in a, I think Prabhupada is in fact, overwhelmed. And even Christians are overwhelmed by just the fact. I think it's possible they're overwhelmed just by the fact that despite our obstacles, I'm trying to render service. I'm just pushing on and trying to render service to these
Wow.
poems.
Well, I find you very inspiring. I find your poetry inspiring. I still can't quite believe you've written over 5,000 poems.
I
That's
think it'd be
that's
more
just
than that. I don't, maybe could be even more than that. I mean, I've had Anyhow, we'll say 5,000.
I did the math one time, and it's over 5,000 poems.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for that. I think what I'm going to do is say goodbye. Is to say goodbye to our viewers at home. And then and then we can have after I've stopped the recording, we can have a brief debrief after. Um, but Anubhavananda, it's been fantastic to have you as the guest on this week's podcast. Just an incredible devotee, an incredible story. And I hope that when I'm 72, are you 72?
Yes.
I hope that when I'm 72, I'm still as enthusiastic about Krishna consciousness as you are. Okay. Even though you're in Florida and I'm in the UK, I can feel your enthusiasm through the internet,
Oh, wow.
through the digital waves, and I do hope that I'm just the same as you when I'm 72.
I just want to be like you.
Oh no.
To me, everybody's superior to me. Everybody's better than me as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, Hare Krishna.
So I'm just going to say goodbye to the viewers at home, and we'll have a debrief after. But a huge thank you to Anubhavananda Prabhu for being our 148th guest on the Hare Krishna Project podcast. I'm so pleased that finally he has agreed to be a guest after all this time. He's been somebody that other devotees are recommended often, and I'm really pleased that today.
I'm amazed. I didn't know that. That's very encouraging to me.
Well, often other people, believe it or not, other people are inspired by you, and some of them kind of not anonymously but randomly just got in touch and said, "Hey, this guy is really quite inspiring. You should interview him." So I'm pleased it's happened. I'm going to just say goodbye to everyone at home. Do not forget, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you haven't already, to hit the subscribe button. Or if you're watching this on Facebook, if you haven't already, please do click the like or follow button so you can be kept updated about future podcasts and video productions from the Hare Krishna project. Just to remind you, we are just 2 episodes away from our 150th episode. We've got lots more fantastic guests coming up, just like Anubhavananda Prabhu. So until next week, I'll see you all soon. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.